Guess what? I was muted. Hello, welcome.
Oh, Damo. What are we going to do with you?
I don't know. So let me just cover off that again. Is that basically it's really tough with time management, and so we've decided to do the live stream to speed up and get the content out to you in a timely fashion. It's really hard with rounds and events coming up so fast, so we tend to, struggle a little bit, and so hopefully this means we can continue to get the content to you earlier and faster.
That is the idea.
Yeah, so I guess we can now kind of kick it off, and just thanks for tuning in. For those, we have got someone in the chat, which is great. Thanks for
We have one follower. How good! I can't actually see it, but clearly you can. So awesome! Welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Our 2024 was good but busy, so thanks for asking. All right, we are going to now kind of kick off, and I guess what we'd like to do is really just do a quick recap of both F1, but let's start with supercars. I guess. How did you find that Will Brown, I guess we called it early, but Will Brown winning the championship? It was a mammoth effort in the end.
Huge effort by Will. Can't fault him. He kind of did a Russell Ingall when I think about it. He won a few races here and there, like 05 type thing, and then just made sure that he was like top 5, top 3, all the way through. And I mean, aside from obviously Chaz trying to chase him down until the Enduros hit, he did a great job.
Yeah, we'll touch on that little, our pain point, not it, maybe
yeah,
not right, but a pain point for us. But, I think he did a great job of just kind of getting in there, getting the job done as best he could. And I guess, look, that's the way the championship kind of rolls. We have got a bit of a change coming up next year, which we'll also touch on a bit later, which will be interesting to see how it unfolds in 2025. But let's move on to the WAU section and Chaz. It was such a great first half, I should say, where he was really in there, and WAU were performing really well. Chaz was going really well. What happened, Steve?
WAU things.
I thought you were going to say because we took a break and that was the jinx.
Oh yeah. So Damo went overseas, so it's his fault.
Yep.
And I got busy shooting drifts and all the other stuff, and they lost focus. So it was clearly our fault. That's as simple as that. It's our fault. We did it. Sorry, Chaz. Apologies. No, look, I think WAU had such a good year, really, when you think of it overall, that it's just those little tidy up things, that those 1%ers that sort of let them down, whether it was that first pit stop at the original Bathurst that stuffed them up, or, the clicking into reverse at the Gold Coast while still going forward. Like, it's
Oh my gosh.
All those little things that just came, I don't know, just destroyed his title hopes, I guess. I mean, really, if you think about it, other than those little things, it was really just the Sandown and Bathurst that completely destroyed it. But I thought it was a pretty good year for them. I think they were far more consistent across the board. So I look at it as a nut.
Yeah. I think there were lots of positives, but there was just some fundamental issues and some bad luck that all kind of culminated, especially through the Enduros. And it was just like you're a contender, and then you have the Enduros, and you're out and you're done. So it was, a little
literally
disappointing, but yeah,
it was.
Yeah,
it was
beautiful. Now, finals format. Let's kind of touch on the finals format. I know we're doing a bit of a recap, but what I'd like to ask,
it was announced.
It was announced during last year, but how do you think the championship would have ended up if they'd applied that this year versus coming in next year? Because I think we would have found that we would have ended up with a different winner this year.
You reckon?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the strength of Brock, your favourite driver at at Clipsal. That was such a strong finish. And, okay, yes, we lost Chaz, but you look at Waters, he came back real strong in that last half of the year. So I think if you kind of think about how they kind of panned out in 2024 and think about what that could look like, it really could be quite open as long as you're in that top 10 coming into those last rounds.
I agree. I think it'll be fairly open, and Brock was and is strong at Adelaide every time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if we would have seen a different outcome. I think Brock really put it to the test by shafting Mozzie into the wall. So I think we'll see a lot of carnage next year, because I do have a funny feeling. I know we're not going to touch on the really talking 2024, but, like the Kostecki factor next year or this year now, there's a lot of things that can play out. And when there's a little bit more on the line, you are going to do those desperate type moves that Brock did. So I think we could have a completely different winner. You're right. But if you actually look at it as how it all ended up, Brown wins. Like, I think it would have still stayed the same. So, I don't know. I don't know is the answer. I guess we'll find out. It's an exciting thing to go into. I think it'll be good for the championship, because I think we needed a bit of a shake-up. It gets a bit boring sometimes.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm in much the same camp where I think it's great that they're trying it, and I think it has got potential to really kind of make things spice up the championship, bring it into the media, etc. I can't say when I first heard it that I was a big fan initially. My gut reaction was just like, you really are breaking with the full tradition of the sport, and we do have to try new things, and so I'm glad they're doing it. But I'll tell you what, if Chaz is in contention, and say like the situation where Brock's not in contention and that takeout happens, man, I might be up for a new TV when I'm watching that.
I think Chaz would, if he wasn't in contention, I think Chaz would just let him go. Yeah. I think if Chaz went back, he probably would have just let him go, especially with the penalty that he had and stuff. So,
yeah.
Look, it's really difficult. You don't know until you're in the situation. And I guess that's the beauty of it. We won't know how they'll react until they react. Which will be good. I do agree with you, though, just to go back slightly on the fact that it is break with tradition. But I've actually been thinking about this more and more. I've been watching a lot of the old Supercars stuff in the little break. A lot of, like late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s stuff.
Yep.
And the cars aren't the same anymore. The racing, the DNA is not the same anymore. So I kind of feel like, you know what, if you're going to break those traditions now, let's just break them, because it is a completely different sport to what it was back then.
Yeah. I think when you have time to reflect, I think that's exactly right. And that's why I probably warmed up to it a lot more than my gut reaction initially. But, I'm kind of keen to see what happens. And, I guess it's a first year, so it's going to be interesting how everyone applies it, and it's probably a good segue into the next thing that we wanted to talk about, which is that, I guess, as much as I don't want, the brilliance of Red Bull with the safety car procedure, how they just dominated and destroyed everyone by just doing what they do best and knowing the rule book and figuring out the best way around it.
God, I hate that team. I really hate that team. But yes, you have to applaud them for reading the regulations, and I mean, they have speed at Sandown particularly anyway, all the time. So that allows them to play those games, but it didn't help the racing. Sandown was a snore fest. It was a real snore fest. I struggled, as I did with Bathurst, to be honest, but we'll talk about that again at another stage. But yeah, I'm glad they've abolished. That's not the right word. Kiboshed. Squashed it, thrown it out, killed it like a cockroach. Because I didn't see any reason for it to exist. Ultimately, it wasn't a safety thing as much as they tried to play it out as. It was this whole strategy thing that just didn't do anything for the sport. So, yeah, I'm all for let's get back to a little bit more real racing. Safety car comes out when it actually is needed.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. So I was at Sandown, and so the two takeaways that I had was initially seeing them stay out, and then as they completed their first pit stop, which I don't think they picked up in the telecast, but when they completed the first pit stop and they're coming out of the pits, I was like, how that happened? And I'm just like, of course, everyone is going around so slow. It doesn't matter if you pit straight away or not, because you could just keep going, and you're not going to get that impact that you would normally have. And then the other part, which this safety thing, it's great. It's funny how applying something in real life versus in theory, how quickly that can change. And it's really seeing like Will Davison almost rear end cars because people are doing it.
Did rear end cars? He hit Reynolds.
Well, yeah, he hit him. Didn't quite take him out though, did he?
No, but he punted his backside in, so it was a solid enough hit.
Yeah, it was. But like, it was just seeing that live at going down the end of the straight. It was just amazing that like when that happened, I was like, how can this be a safety thing? The drivers are all braking at different points. They've got different ideas on how and when to do it, and so it just caused chaos numerous times where people were avoiding or actually crashing into each other.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do something like that, you have to do what they do in like rental go-karts, where literally they have a button, and if something goes yellow, they just hit that button, and every single card on track drops. That's what you'd have to do. You can't leave it to the discretion of the teams and the drivers and give them a 15-second window to hit the brake, because they're always going to hit it at a different time.
Yeah, some are conservative because they're really conscious of their race. They don't want to have a penalty, and others are like, hey, you know what? I can, when it gets to 4 seconds, I can make that braking marker and get down to the speed. So
it's like driving on the Monash, mate. It's just dangerous.
Yeah, it's just dangerous. Yeah.
So good.
Good to see Martin Nader in the chat. He's going to Sandown
Martin
Nader. He's a MotoGP guy. So it's
very good. Welcome.
We are probably going to go to Sandown too, because we realised that it was either going to be the F1, which is a crazy ballot system that some people were lucky to get and others weren't. Lucky you, Steve. And and then it was like, we've got Sandown in Victoria, so that's the only other one that we can go to. So
we do, and like I know it's completely irrelevant, but this is the only year we've got a good mate, another mate of mine, Hawley, and Mark as well, and this is the only year where Chaz is in. We're all supporting Chaz,
yes,
and we can all buy the merch and go for him, because in years past, Hawley was a Holden guy, and Mark's a Tesla driver, so he's invalid. But this is the first year that we could all actually go as one and support as one.
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, Hawley's a staunch WAU, not even a Holden or Chevy guy anymore. He's just a WAU fan, and so I guess he'll be going to Toyota. So this will be the last year that we can kind of all support the same driver together. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good.
All right. Let's get to a topic that had you sending off red hot messages to me at all sorts of times throughout the Bathurst coverage. Your notes say Bathurst and that gap.
Yes.
Talk to me, Steve.
Yeah, Bathurst and that gap. Yeah. So I'm not saying there is a parity issue. I'm not saying there isn't a parity issue. But what I'm saying is that at the end of 2 or 3 stints, to have 1 minute 10 seconds between the leading Chevs and the leading Mustang, that's a big gap. I know it was green the whole time, and I know these cars are very they're hard to get in the window, and if they're just out of the window, it can be miles different, especially in race trim. I do understand that, but there has to be something going on there. It just doesn't seem to work. And it's the only, I mean,
Yeah.
Sandown, you could argue, is similar too, but Bathurst seems to be that track where there's an issue.
Yeah.
Although I'd love to speak to WAU because I want to know what they did differently from the start of the year
Yeah.
to when they went to the 1000, because whatever happened, that car was nowhere near as good as it was at the start of the year. Or the guys at the front jumped ahead.
Yeah, that was the part that doesn't seem to make sense. So I think, you know, in terms of what they've done for the category, I think overall we're really good and happy. But this anomaly of Bathurst now, there's been some people talking about the atmosphere pressure because of the height and stuff, that it's changing the dynamic of that Ford engine. But you're right, there was definitely a clear gap in the horsepower. Now, there's always been times where either cars have had horsepower up the straight, you know, up the straights on either side, and then across the top. But there wasn't an advantage, I didn't feel, across the top in the same way. But then I couldn't figure it out myself because the start of the year was such a different thing. I was just left a bit baffled, you know.
I think what I take away from that is I'll be so intrigued to see Brodie this year in a Mustang versus Brodie last year in a Camaro.
Yes.
If he miraculously has power and speed up there, and they haven't made it, I mean, I suppose the problem is that they're probably going to make more changes throughout the year anyway, because they keep developing both cars, it seems, at the moment. So I'm sure there'll be little things that have changed that will help. But yeah, I think Brodie's the benchmark. You know, he was the fastest Camaro, and I still feel like if he was there all year last year, he probably would have been the fastest Camaro again. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what he does in a Mustang, and then we'll get a real understanding of whether it's just our guys need to lift their game and stop complaining.
Yep.
Or there's an issue.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that's a nice little segue to the next part about Brodie's revival, and that tail end of the season. You know, it was clear in the Enduro campaigns, while Sandown didn't quite work, that was all he wanted. And it just shows the kind of caliber of driver that when he switched on and, you know, basically pushing the team, they can get the results that they want. And when he was kind of switched off in the early part of the year, all sorts of things were going wrong. You know, there was team issues that, you know, he wasn't having any luck. He was driving not near his best, I don't think. So, you know, his revival was, I guess, an inspiring part to kind of mix it into the championship. So, you know, I feel like that's a great gauge for us in the Ford camp to be able to say, okay, Brodie's now in there. Let's see what happens. And as it's a direct comparison to, you know, the year before with the same cars, right? So, yeah, it'll be interesting to watch that one.
Yeah, it definitely will be. Definitely will be.
We hope you enjoyed that video from the Valve Bounce. Join us on one of our streams or catch up on our next video. If you did like it, feel free to hit the subscribe, like, or share it with your friends. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thank you.